everyone. Today I'm going to share with you my thoughts on rereading and the books that I would like to reread in the near future. Since I'm showing you books, it's probably safe to say that I am pro rereading, but I like to go into a little bit more depth about it, and I've been really wanting to make this video ever since Dear Denny from On the Shelf made this video a while ago, so I'll leave a link to that video down below. I do enjoy rereading, but especially in the recent past, I know that my taste has changed and I've become a more critical reader, and I'm afraid that some of the books that I loved when I first read them will lose some of their magic upon reread. But there are some favorites that I need to know what I'm going to think about them as this new person with these new thoughts and opinions. But there are a few books that I probably will never reread that I really enjoyed. For example, The Hunger Games. I only read it like 2 or 3 years ago, but I know that I've become a more critical reader and I probably wouldn't like it nearly as much, but I kind of want to keep that perfect idea I have of that first book in the trilogy in my brain. But I have a few, well, more than a few here that I'm going to share with you, and it's in chronological order, roughly chronological order from when I first read them. The first one is more of a representation of an entire author that I'd like to reread, but I have a copy of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Roald Dahl. This is one that I'm hesitant to put on this list because knowing now what I do about Roald Dahl as a person may skew my opinion of these books that I loved as a child, but the next one is an obvious one. It's one that I'll probably reread quite a bit, but again, it is also one that I'm worried now that I'm a little bit more of a critical reader that I won't like as much, but I think that there's enough nostalgia in it that I'll still enjoy it, and I'm planning on rereading it this month, and it's the Harry Potter series. This is one I'm going to read in the near future, and it's Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. It is my favorite in the series. Next is a book I do not have a copy of, and it is A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I actually don't know if I read this in its entirety. It was one of the books that I was supposed to read as a junior or a senior in high school, and I was a terrible student in the way that I didn't do most of the required reading, but I still could, you know, BS my way through a paper and get good grades. But this is one that I regret. There are others that I need to revisit as well that fit into this category, but I feel like I read the most of this one and then skimmed. So I'd like to revisit A Tale of Two Cities. Another example of something that I was supposed to read and only read some of it is the book that I was supposed to read my freshman year of college. It was our common book, and it is The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. It had some graphic, traumatic sexual scenes in it, and I just wasn't in the right place to get into that or to process that, but I think that I could do it now. And again, it's one that I regret not reading in the first place because I think that it would have been a really powerful read, especially for, you know, 18-year-old Susie. Next, we have Paper Towns by John Green, and this one's probably one that I need to read in the nearest future. I don't know that I'll go and see the movie when it first comes out. I think next year, because I was kind of disappointed by The Fault in Our Stars, and this one has some really powerful messages in it that struck me when I first read it, and I don't know if they'll stand up to time, but I'm curious to see. Next, we have The Time Traveler's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger. This is one of my favorite books, or at least I say it is, but I've only read it the one time, and again, it's one that I'm afraid that will have lost its charm over time. I'm kind of nervous about it because I don't read a lot of novels that center around romance anymore like I did around the time that I read this. So hopefully I can still get something out of it years in the future. The next book I'm going to mention is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. This was one that kind of snuck up on me. Like, I enjoyed it when I read it, but as time went on, I loved it more, but I've only still read it the one time, so I feel like I need to revisit to make sure that the love for it is real, and maybe I'll pick up on things that I didn't pick up the first time, or maybe I'll realize that I didn't like it at all. But again, like Paper Towns, it had some strong themes that snuck up on me that were really poignant at the time that I read it. Next, we have another favorite, and it is The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. I have little doubts that I'm gonna dislike this book completely, but again, I have become a slightly more critical reader, and I may find more to talk about or analyze or look into with this book, and maybe find some historical inaccuracies or something, but I am just a sucker for kind of the heart-wrenching story, so I think that this one will probably stand up, but we shall see, hopefully in the near future. Next, this one is another one that kind of snuck up on me that I enjoyed when I read it, but over time I liked it more, but it's one that's being talked about quite a bit recently, and it's Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Oh, I read this 2 years ago. I think that there's been a lot come to the surface of at least me mentally, that is problematic about this book that I'd like to re-experience and see that if I still enjoy the book as much, being able to experience those with that in mind. Plus, I just want an opportunity to hold this beautiful book in my hand again. The next book is Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. This was one that I actually didn't really like when I first read it. I read it like a month after it came out, and I was still in the mindset that I didn't like books that had unlikable characters, which I now know is ridiculous. And just thinking back on the book and experiencing the story in the movie format made me realize that I think that I would really, really like this book, and this book could easily be a favorite. I just need to give it another chance. Another book that is one that stayed with me, and every once in a while I still think about it, but I don't hear a lot of people talk about it, and I don't own a copy, which is a shame. And it is The Age of Miracles by Karen Thompson Walker. It's kind of an apocalyptic book, but it sneaks up on you, and it's slow, and it's mesmerizing, even though the plot isn't fast-paced. It's about characters going through an apocalyptic event and growing and coming of age, and I kind of want to experience it again. Next is Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell. I've now read all of the books that Rainbow Rowell has published, and I don't know which one that I enjoy the most, and I wouldn't mind rereading some of her other books as well to just kind of form my opinions about it, but I know that I loved this book, but I can't remember much about it except for the parts that everyone talks about when they talk about this book, so I know that I need to re-experience it, and I know that it won't take me very much time to reread it, so hopefully that happens. The next book that I have to mention is Anne of Green Gables by Emily Montgomery. I read this year, and I already want to reread it, and I may reread it before the year ends so that I can continue on in the rest of the series. It's just a heartwarming book that feels like wearing a cozy sweater and drinking hot chocolate and watching a fire burn. Like, it feels like that kind of book, and so I think it's one that I need to revisit probably while it's still cold outside, and so I can continue on in the series. The rest of these books are all books that I've read this year that I want to revisit. The first one being We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. I think that the hype of this book, and also there were aspects of this book that were very cliche, but there were also really good aspects of this book that I'd like to pick up on when I read it again. But I need some space between this one for sure. It'll probably be maybe next summer or something before I reread this one. Next is a book that I've kind of mentioned on this channel, but I haven't really reviewed or talked about yet, and it is The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender by Leslie Walton. It's one that I really enjoyed, but again, it's like something that I actually really loved this book, but it's one that's not sticking with me really well, but I need to revisit it, and there are things I probably missed reading it so quickly, even though I didn't read it that quickly. Like, it's one that I know I need to re-experience to get the most out of it. Next is The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland in the Ship of Her Own Making by Catherine M. Valente. Again, it's just one that I loved, and I want to re-experience and catch little things and highlight and underline quotes, because it's just really good writing, but I didn't do any of that, and there are lots of passages in here that I would love to share with you guys, but I don't remember them specifically because I didn't mark them. And last but certainly not least is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. I read this one way too quickly, and I know that I didn't catch everything that I should have with this book, and I know that I will get so much more out of it upon a reread, and it's one that I don't even want. I almost reread it right after finishing it, and I just hate having this guilt of not reading all the books that are over there first, and that's another reason why I don't reread. So hopefully in the new year I can make it a goal to reread a lot of books. These, and there are more. If you're curious to see other books that I'd like to reread, I have a whole shelf labeled to reread on Goodreads that you can check out. As always, please feel free to share your thoughts on any of the books I shared here today, or your thoughts on rereading in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow with a new video.